Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How are you all doing? Can you hear this? Yes? So, I thought it'd be okay, because my aura ring told me it was time to stand up, if we all just stood up for a second, because I'm figuring that you might want to just stretch your legs for 2 seconds, and then you can sit back down, and I know it's awkward, but it feels good, doesn't it? Anyway, that's all. Just, we're done here.
We standing?
Yeah,
We can stay standing.
yeah, we can. So is it gonna be weird if we just stay standing? No. Okay.
Well, we're a little weird, so that's totally fine with us.
Well, thank you all for being here. I'm excited to share a little bit about Athletic Brewing's journey. I've been the CMO at Athletic Brewing for about 2.5 years. I'm the first one there, which makes me feel really good because whoever comes next just gets to clean up all my messes. I didn't really have any messes to clean up because the brand was in such a good foundational spot when I arrived. And I don't know if we can roll a quick video, but just quick show of hands, how many people know Athletic Brewing? That's quite amazing. It's not a typical room. So we have about 25% aided awareness right now, so we have a lot of work to do, but thank you all for knowing us. And I don't know who's running the presentation, but maybe we can show a video? Okay.
This is an epic, action-packed, adventure-filled story of Athletic Brewing's revolutionary non-alcoholic beer and the founders behind it.
I'm Bill.
And I'm John.
You see, this is no ordinary non-alcoholic beer. These are great-tasting brews that are fit for all times. And they all started with a crazy idea.
Why can't there just be an amazing non-alcoholic beer that wouldn't affect me the next day?
And one that actually tasted great?
Oh, wow. That's a great idea.
And there you have it. Just two totally delusional people.
So, I'm going to chat about you.
What you guys built is amazing, frankly, so congratulations to you. I'd love to take a step back before we start to get to where you are today and get a good understanding of how did you build this awareness, what were the tactics and strategies that were deployed in the early days to frankly stand up a new category and get the adoption that we all see today.
So just a couple of quick things. So that's Bill Schufeld, John Walker, the two co-founders of the company. And they really, I think, went into this whole category thinking it was just so ripe for disruption. And how do you reframe it? Because traditionally, non-alcoholic beer was for people who had a drinking problem. If you think about people who drank O'Doul's, it was not very aspirational. It was sort of like, the wah-wah prize. But, Bill had this idea that there were a lot of people like him who were living high-performance lifestyles, really loved to be social, loved the taste of beer, and there was really nothing there, right? You had O'Doul's or seltzer or soda. So it was really just born out of this idea that there is something that more than just the two co-founders wanted. And the way the brand began was really very much grassroots. So Bill was an athlete, is an athlete, would load up his car, go around the East Coast to road races, and then run the race, and then sample the product afterwards. And so it was really born in a very authentic way with people who presumably were like-minded.
Very cool. And thinking of those initial strategies, how have you guys evolved over time, and what's really remained consistent in terms of the successes from the early days that you have found scalable through and through to where you are today?
So a couple of things that still remain true today. We do a lot of things that don't scale. So we do a ton of in-person sampling. Every person on my team, every person at the company will go and do sampling events all throughout the course of the year, get in front of people at sporting events, at races, concerts, and share the experience of the brand, share the experience of the beer. It's one thing for me to tell you, oh, we've got a great non-alcoholic beer. It's another thing for you to try it and go, oh wow, that's actually much better than I thought it was. and then you build that one-on-one connection. So we did about 1 million samples last year. We'll do almost 1.25 million this year. And it is the single best thing that we do from a marketing standpoint. So,
Get hands-on products, showcase the
Hands-on
quality,
hands. liquid to lips.
and build those relationships.
And build the relationships. The best advertising, the best marketing in the world is never going to replace that one-on-one relationship.
Yeah, so within sports, obviously, that's why we're all here. What's been the decision to kind of align with sports as a non-alcoholic beverage? And I know mission is critical to the business. How does sports really play into the larger mission of the business?
Yeah, so the mission of the brand is ostensibly to help people live healthier, happier, better lives, but also having an impact on their communities and the world at large. So all the things we do as a brand and as a company kind of go back to that mission. We have a Two for the Trails program where up to $2 million of our profits go back to trail rehabilitation or restoration. And the idea is that if we give more people better access to the outdoors, more people will go outdoors and be healthy. So that's number one. Number two, we're B Corp. So the way that we do our business is also equally important. And consumers are just so much savvier today. It's not just about having a great product. Everyone's got a great product for the most part. But it's how you do what you do that makes the company and the brand resonate. So there's the mission piece. And then in terms of why sports, it's really just a shared passion that we have. A lot of the people at our company are athletes or former athletes. And when you are with friends, when you're with family, when you want to be entertained, you just have those moments of receptivity that are very different. You and I were talking yesterday. It always confused me. I come out of the subway in the morning some days, and somebody's handing me a stick of deodorant as a sample. And I was like, smell bad? Like, why am I getting deodorant coming out of the subway? It's just weird. So, as marketers, think about where your brand might intersect well with the consumer experience as opposed to you're just trying to force the issue with them, and it feels really inorganic.
Yeah, well, summer New York City sometimes can get
sometimes it's the best thing that you could
yeah,
get.
because it can get brutal. But talking sports strategy, partnerships are critical to how you guys have really built that brand. What's the criteria when you start to evaluate different partnerships? And then within that, how does the education and trial in terms of building that connection with consumers, how does that play into that larger strategy?
So, a couple of things. We have the good fortune of getting a lot of inbounds. So a lot of athletes, a lot of people like Walker Hayes. He's not an athlete, but he's a country music star. He was a very organic fan of the brand and reached out to us and said, I love what you're doing. How can I be a part of it? And that happens with frequency. So part of it is who's raising their hand and saying, I want to be a part. And then there's the outbound where we're reaching out to people and saying, we love what you're doing. We think that we share a lot of the same values, DNA. Would you like to do something together? So we're doing something with Dylan Francis. Anyone know who Dylan Francis is? Yeah. So not necessarily would be at the top of our list, but he's somebody that really connects to the brand. So those connection points feel real to consumers. I think one of the things that's evolved since I started my career is it used to be about celebrity. Celebrity would get you views and eyeballs, and now it's sort of antithetical to a lot of the things we do because celebrity feels bought. Celebrity feels fake. And so when I think about who do we want to work with and how are they going to represent our brand, it's really more about their worldview. Ken Rideout, somebody we were just talking about. So Ken Rideout's an ultra runner. He's in his 50s. Dude's crazy. He's a badass. Go watch his story on YouTube. So he wouldn't necessarily fit into a nice box of what we would say, oh, they have to have this and this and this and this. He doesn't have a big social following. He's probably not super relevant to Gen Z, but he's just such an authentic human that represents the brand so well, so he's one of our people.
That's very cool. A lot of At Roku, we are so data-centric, right? Everything we do is about finding the right consumer, leveraging first-party data, understanding their behaviors. It sounds like you guys take a different approach. It is more so aligning
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Well, from a partnership standpoint with certain talent, it's about finding authenticity within the human that you are working with. Is there that additional layer of understanding the audiences associated with these partnerships and how that can kind of tap into who you know your consumers to be? And when you think about these unique audiences and partnerships, how does that strategy really come together?
So we are very data centric. I just want to put it out there that we use a lot of, MarTech. So we use MMM tools, we use MTA tools. We have a always on brand tracking, brand health study that we do. We test all of our ads. So we're very honest about, intellectually honest about what's working and what's not. And then beyond that, we do identify people, but then we do run them through, sort of our own version of trust but verify. So we do look at engagement rates, we do look at conversion rates when we are working with influencers. And then we also have our own 1,500 person strong group of ambassadors. And so these are people who are just micro-influencers. And they raise their hand and they say, I really want to do something with you, right? Because I love what you're doing, I want to be a part of it. And so that also fuels like this very organic relationship that people have to the brand because it's coming through a friend. If you introduce me to the brand, I don't feel like I'm being advertised to. I feel like you're actually sharing something of value with me. We try and encourage those types of connections more often than a big advertising campaign, which is exactly what it sounds like, a big advertising campaign.
Yeah, so it sounds very much that building community through these partnerships in an authentic way is really critical to how you guys have built that brand and why it resonates so deeply with your consumer base. I'd love to dig into Gen Z audience demo in particular. If there are any specific marketing strategies that you have found to be very effective with that group, what would those learnings be? And going back to your point and understanding how do you go ahead and snatch their attention in such a busy world and foster those relationships?
First, I'll be the first to admit we're still working on that.
Okay.
Like we don't have that figured out by any stretch of the imagination. However, we're supposed to deliver on this title, engaging the next generation of fans. So I'm going to talk about that. That's why you're here. So as we think about that next generation of fan, some things that are really highly relevant. 45% of Gen Z claim to have not had any alcohol, ever. So I know a lot of the Gen Z folks in the room are going, who the heck
That's a
is those
staggering
people?
number.
Because that's,
To be honest.
I do think generationally, Gen Z millennials are drinking significantly less alcohol than any previous generation. So that's a tailwind pushing this category forward, not just us, but just the entire category. The products have gotten dramatically better. Like if I think about, would I ever want no duels? Never. But the products on the market, ours, Gia, there's a whole range of options that just simply didn't exist. And then I would be lying if I didn't say California sober is not a factor as well, because the way that people take the edge off has evolved, right? I don't want to drink my buzz in a lot of cases, right? I want to eat it or smoke it. And we are a good complement because the reality is athletic brewing is a very social, beer in general is a very social occasion, right? And it's a savory occasion. So if I have something in my hand that tastes great, but I don't want any more than I've got, it's a new occasion that maybe didn't exist before.
And you're finding that mindset and the ability to really communicate this message resonates more so with this younger demographic. Does your message or just approach to marketing change as you're going after 36, a more mature adult who has been drinking for a very long time, and how does that strategy really shift when thinking
So one of the, I think, great things, and with all due respect to Diageo, who preceded me on the stage, so one of my favorite drink specials in Brooklyn is called The Hypocrite. And it's a shot of tequila with an athletic. So what we're...
Shot of beer,
I wish I'd come up with that, but I'm just sharing how great it is, because somebody much smarter than me decided that was the thing. But the idea is it's not binary, right? We're not a company that ever tells people you should or shouldn't drink. We're never standing on a soapbox saying drinking is bad. It's 80% of our drinkers drink alcohol. I'm one of them. So the idea is there's a time and a place, and it's the occasion, and it's who you're with that really dictates what you're drinking, when you're drinking, how much you're drinking. And so it's really about having great options available as opposed to changing how I communicate, right? Maybe the format, right? Maybe for a Gen Z audience, TikTok is a better platform to just get that short, bite-sized piece of entertainment in front of you. But in terms of what we're saying, it's really ultimately about the beer.
Right, and so guys, it feels like everything really ladders up to the mission, right? And making sure that that is the lens in which you guys make all your decisions, and that's clearly been very successful. So kudos to that. So bringing you back to sports a little bit. So how does athletic contribute to the growth of women's sports viewership, broader adoption? What we have seen is that last March Madness, the women's tournament grew almost 40% faster in terms of viewership. Huge Caitlin Clark effect, no doubt. But women's sports adoption is happening, and we all know how important that is, and to consumers as well as brands. How are you guys kind of like helping with that viewership adoption, and how are you using that to reach a younger demographic?
So, I mean, we're still a very small brand. I wouldn't say that we're being a big driving force. I'm just being honest. But the thing that we've done since day one is we've always tried to find a very male-female balance in terms of how we communicate with everyone. We have a slight male skew in terms of who actually consumes our product, but we have a lot of females who also drink athletic. My wife is probably an outlier in terms of how much of it she drinks. But we've been doing NIL deals for both men's and women's teams since inception. We've been doing, we do a lot of paid athletes that we work with, but they're perhaps more esoteric sports like rock climbing or cycling. So we've always been into more action and adventure sport because they're very participatory. And that's really, like, if I think about our audience, we've got our aspirational target. Our aspirational target are these great, elite athletes competing in Ironmans and Ragnars and Spartans. But that's not a big enough audience to actually sell a lot of beer to. So as we think about who our actual consumption audience is, we talk about active improvers, which is why I made you all stand up. So that was just that 1% little better that you did for yourself today. And that's really who we're trying to reach as an audience, both men and women. And we know that where people have passion, we want to show up. So women's games, women's sports are becoming just much more evolved. And we have this ongoing conversation at home about why are women paid less than men, like male athletes. And so I think that that's changing in real time. If you look at the charter flights that the WNBA is now offering for their female athletes, that's like a major step forward. Major.
Interesting. To kind of wrap us up a little bit, would love to get some advice from you for everyone in the audience in terms of what would you offer in terms of advice to brands seeking to engage younger audiences, specifically through sports, the biggest learnings that you have found in your career, as well as specifically at The Athletic?
So whatever words of wisdom these are, but when we were kind of talking about what do we want people to take away from this session. So hopefully there's some actionable things that you all take away that you can, even if it's just one idea that you take back to your offices. And the idea is that for us, it's like where does sports intersect with our brand? And how are we not force-fitting ourselves? How can we be a complement versus, clearly a transaction?
Right.
And I think the less transactional you can be in dealing with your customers, prospects, the better that relationships is from the get-go. Because we don't want to just rent attention, right? What we want to build is community. And so we try and approach all the things that we do with that mindset. Like, how are we building this broader community? Cool.
If we have time and if there are any questions from the crowd, we'd like to open it up. See if anyone wants to speak for Andrew. No? Well,
I know somebody out there has a question. Just take one.
Ellie Schneider from the WNBA.
Hi, Ellie Schneider from the WNBA.
Does religion play a role at all in your marketing strategy? So religions that don't promote alcohol consumption but might drink a non-alcoholic beverage like athletic brewing?
So the question was, if you didn't hear it, do we promote anything having to do with religion and like rules around drinking? So the answer is no, we don't. We try and just talk about sports in the office, like Andrew said. We try not to take a position on religion or politics or things that really we are not expert at. So what we do is we just try and brew the best non-alcoholic beer that we can brew, and then hope that people find us and we become the reference brand for the category. So the question was, where are your biggest distribution points? So right now, we are fairly dominant in retail, traditional retail, grocery. So a little bit of a humble brag. We're the #1 non-alcoholic beer brand in America now. So we overtook Heineken Zero, we overtook Bud Zero, we overtook all of the big boys and girls, and we actually are driving 50% of the growth in the category, largely through grocery. Our big opportunities are stadiums, concert venues, live entertainment. So that's where we're making a big push. And also convenience. And on-premise is, we're making really good strides, but it's very much, block by block.
Okay. Hi, Jessica from Shop. You talked about your influencer strategy being aspirational athletes, which is a very small category. So I'm curious, if you're tracking brand awareness amongst the masses, like what's your influencer strategy for everyone else?
So I would say that there's not one answer to that question, because it is literally like layer upon layer. If I think about our marketing strategy, I think of it as a big puzzle. And all the different pieces have to fit to make that perfect picture for the consumer. So there's, I don't know what the stat is, but 21 different touch points before a consumer actually makes a decision about anything. So we start with very authentic grassroots things. We start with different types of influencers. So we do have an influencer strategy, and, by platform, by category. We try and lean in on sports, try and lean in on entertainment, food, things that make sense, like beer occasions is really kind of what drives a lot of our decision making. And we're still figuring it out. I would not, again, I'd be lying to you for like, oh well, we have it all figured out. We don't. But I think it's really like these intersections of these different micro communities, right? It's not trying to cast the widest net possible. I think it's really trying to be very targeted. And then where does that overlap? Where are those concentric circles happening?
Hey, Connor Devane with Roku. Zack, great job moderating the panel, throwing a question in here.
Is he a star? Like, he should do this on daytime TV. He's really good.
He's a natural for sure. So I think, like, at least when we're talking about sports strategies, we're always thinking about like ones that are mainstream: football, basketball, baseball, so on and so forth. I think your perspective is very valuable, and like talking about ultra running and maybe some sports that have more of a niche audience. So which sports do you like to participate in specifically, and just what does an athletic or athlete's mindset mean to you?
So I teach indoor cycling at Equinox. So if you're ever up in Westchester and you want to come ride with me, come ride with me. So I think part of it is like what brings you joy. I also trail run and other things like that. So I do think that there's absolutely a place. Like we also are sponsors of Houston Dynamo, in the MLS. So like we do traditional sports, and as we get bigger, I think we'll look to more mainstream, larger sports because we do want to scale. But our roots will always be in these participatory sports. I think it's just where the brand was born, and it's true to who we are. So we'll always have that as a segment, and a lot of times when we try and veer away from that, our co-founder Bill will say, I don't see enough, of this type of athlete on our roster. Can we add them back in? And also just the longevity, because I think what you want to do, some relationships are temporal, but some you want to have over years and years that, like, they become part of the family. Thank you so much. One more?
Sorry. Hi, I'm Elizabeth with Mid Influential. And you were saying that you guys, sorry, that's hot mic. You're saying that you guys are number one in the non-alcoholic beer category, which is phenomenal. But also with all of the changing of the landscape you're talking about, when you're looking at your competitive landscape and you're making decisions about which of the communities we're tapping into, or what are the secondary kind of consumers looking like? Are you considering electrolyte waters? Are you considering sports drinks, the CBD, mocktail liquors, all of it? Where are you guys really focusing as we look forward as to who your competitors are outside of?
That's a great question. It was one that we had talked about. So what I would say is this: first and foremost, we're talking to beer drinkers about beer. Right, 62 million people in the U.S. are our potential customers. That's a massive audience. So I'm maniacally focused on them. But of the top 15 brands that we're competing against, not one of them only does non-alcoholic beer. We're the only one. So it enables us to be so focused and not distracted. So we can only think about what's best for the customer. How can we make the best non-alcoholic beer possible, period. So that's our mission, number one. Number two, do I think about liquid death? 100% I do, because I'd be stupid not to. I mean, they're competing for similar occasions that I'm competing for at a lower price point. So I need to deliver much better value and much better brand experience. And then thirdly, it's really about the and not the or. So I want to very much coexist with alcoholic products because that's what consumers want to do. And so if I can be that and in a drinking occasion, it's a huge win for me. So I think that's it. But I really appreciate Zack, awesome moderator, so like natural. And for all of you for being here, really appreciate it, and for getting the invite. For Brandon, really appreciate it, Brandon Innovators. Thanks everyone. Thank you.